If you live in Ankeny, Iowa, there is a massive, wide, deceptive trade practice that is happening in your area. This massive, wide, deceptive trade practice is intentionally misleading and deceiving Ankeny residents. People are being deceived into joining a business opportunity. This deception is being committed in order to financially harm and financially exploit individuals. And from this deceptive trade practice, many people have lost thousands of dollars, and many people have got into a financial loss because of this. And many people have got into debt because of this deceptive trade practice. This deceptive trade practice is happening rampantly in Ankeny, Iowa. And it is ran by a couple named Daniel and Thao Goebel. Daniel and Thao Goebel live in Ankeny, Iowa, and they are deliberately and intentionally lying to people in order to get them to join their fraudulent scheme. So in this episode, I'm going to protect residents in Ankeny, Iowa, and I'm going to expose Daniel and Thao Goebel's massive, wide, deceptive trade practice that is happening in Ankeny, Iowa, and I will reveal the truth about Daniel and Thao Goebel. The reason why is because I'm actually a victim of Daniel and Thao Goebel's fraudulent scheme, and I've lost thousands of dollars to them, and as a result, I went into debt, and I was in a financial loss by participating in Daniel and Thao Goebel's fraudulent scheme, and this scheme is still happening today, and so I don't want others to go through what I went through. I don't want others to be at a financial loss and lose money and go into debt like I did from joining Daniel and Thao Goebel's fraudulent scheme. And so on here, I'm going to expose the truth about Daniel and Thao Goebel. Because on this show, if you don't know, I expose the truth on this show. Because this show is called Unplug. On this show, we free the minds of the people that have been indoctrinated and enslaved by the MLM matrix, or the multi-level marketing matrix, or the direct selling industry. In particular, we speak truth against the lies and fallacies of Amway and LTD. I'm your host, TJ Misumi. So if you didn't know, the owners of LTD, Leadership Team Development, named Larry and Pam Winners, so they were suspended recently for making false income claims and false advertising about Amway to all of their members that are part of LTD at their summit conference back in October of 2025. And now that suspension has now been lifted, if you didn't know. So now they're back to speaking at their events now. They're allowed to do that now, and they're no longer suspended from Amway. But I did mention that, Larry and Pam, in their own words, said that they were going to change the curriculum, and be more accurate towards, describing the Amway opportunity to prospects and downline, and they were no longer going to misrepresent Amway to any prospect or downline. That's what they said, but it's not true. It's not true at all. Because in their downline, through LTD, their recruits, so to speak, they're still doing the same things. They're still misrepresenting the Amway opportunity, and they're still making false income claims, false lifestyle claims, and they're also false advertising about Amway. The same actions are still being done. So, I mean, this lesson has not been learned from them or their downline, because the curriculum is still the same. And I'm going to go over that here in a moment, but it's still the same. And the curriculum, towards, teaching their downline on how to um, describe the Amway opportunity to prospects and downline is still the same mostly. It's still deception, it's still lies, and it's not, being transparent, and it's not according to following Amway's rules. And Daniel and Thao Goebel are Amway Platinums that are in LTD, and they're in Larry and Pam Winners downline, or they're in their recruits, so to speak. Way down in depth, but they are recruits of Larry and Pam. Way down in depth, but like they're in Larry and Pam's team. They're recruits within their team. And they're part of Amway, of course, and they're a part of LTD, and they're Amway ranked platinums. And, the curriculum is still the same. Still the same mostly. It's a little different, but it's still the same, where it's still deception and it's still lies, and it's still misleading prospects and downline, and no one's actually being, told the truth about Amway. And so what I'm about to reveal here is that this is all grounds for, either suspension from Amway or termination, because Daniel and Thao Goebel are violating Amway's rules, and they're making false income claims, false lifestyle claims, and they are false advertising about Amway, and they're teaching their downline to do that as well. They're teaching their own recruits to do that as well. So this is all grounds for termination, not just for Daniel and Thao, but also for Larry and Pam, because they're essentially they're advocating this, they're supporting this, and they're perpetually teaching this to, their downline within LTD. So nothing really has changed. It's still deception. It's still lies. And so before, the pitch was when if you were a prospect, so to speak, let's just say you're out, you're doing groceries, whatever. You're at the mall, the gym, whatever. You're out and about in public, and let's just say an Amway rep that's a part of LTD comes up to you, and they start a conversation. Before, the pitch was, I'm working with a guy or a couple, or I'm working with a group of entrepreneurs that built a web-based asset, and they were able to double their income, or step away from their jobs, or leave their jobs in their late 30s, and they're pushing me to do the same thing, so I don't have to work a job forever, or I don't have to rely on a job forever. Or I'm working with a guy that was able to build a web-based asset, and he was able to retire in his late 30s, making 6 figures plus, and he's teaching me to do the same thing, so I don't have to work a job forever. That was the pitch. Now that pitch has changed. The reason why is because they know that I'm exposing them, and I've exposed their pitch many times on my show. So now they've had to change their dialogue on what they say to prospects. But even now, I know their new dialogue. So they've adjusted things. So I'm gonna give the new pitch right here now, so people can know and be aware of LTD's fraudulent scheme, as well as being aware of, most importantly, Daniel and Thao Goebel's fraudulent, deceptive trade practice. So a prospect reached out to me because they were solicited by a member, a part of Daniel and Thao Goebel's team, downline, one of the recruits. They were solicited by this member that is a part of Daniel and Thao Goebel's team, one of Daniel and Thao Goebel's recruits. And according to the prospect, the pitch was that I'm connected to a CEO that makes $70,000. That was the pitch. It was, I'm connected to a CEO that makes $70,000. 70K. And mind you, they did not say the name of the CEO, and they did not mention or disclose the company, which in this case it's Amway. There was no clear company identification, and there was no upfront disclosure that the opportunity that was being referred to was Amway. And there was no immediate explanation of what business was actually being offered. All that's mentioned by, any recruit that's a part of Daniel and Thao's team is that, I'm connected or I'm working with a CEO that makes $70,000 a year. And then after that conversation, they'll get your phone number if you're a prospect, and they won't give you your phone number. They'll just take your phone number, and then later on they'll reach out to you. And that's what happened with this prospect. The recruit, a part of Daniel and Thao's team, they called back the prospect, and basically on that phone call, the message shifted. The prospect was finally given the name of the CEO, and in this case, it's Daniel. So the prospect was told the name of the CEO, which was Daniel, and the prospect was told that Daniel works in passive income. And overall, this recruit was trying to set up a meeting with Daniel and the prospect for the prospect to get connected with Daniel, essentially. So they were just trying to, or the recruit was trying to, set up a meeting, for Daniel to meet the prospect in person, and that would be called a meeting one, or a meet and greet one within the vetting process, the 7 to 9 meeting interview process. If you want more details on that, it's on my website, www.pluglttools.com. I have the whole entire vetting process there. So essentially the recruit was trying to set up a meet and greet one for Daniel and that prospect to meet each other in person. But in that phone call, the prospect was told that, Daniel works in passive income, and there was still no mention of Amway whatsoever. And only later does the real identity of the opportunity, the business opportunity, gets revealed and comes into focus. Only later is it revealed that it is Amway, an MLM structure, not some unnamed passive income venture. And typically that happens during the third meeting within the self-created 7 to 9 meeting interview process. It's typically the third meeting where it's revealed that the opportunity is Amway. But until then, the prospect will not know that it's Amway until the third meeting. And if they don't make it that far within the vetting process, let's just say they don't make it to the third meeting, then the prospect will never know that overall the opportunity was Amway. So it's changed a little bit now. So before it was, I'm connected to so and so that built an asset, web based, and they retired or doubled their income outside their jobs, and then show me do that so I don't have to work a job forever. That was the pitch back then when I was in, and even after I left, it was still the same pitch. But now recently, because I've exposed them, now I'm connected to a CEO that makes X income. In this case here for the Goebel team, the Goebel recruits, they're saying that I'm connected to a CEO that makes 70K annually. And then later in the phone call, if you make it that far, when they call you back after they meet you the first time and get your phone number, they'll say, hey, the CEO's name is this. In this case, it's Daniel. The CEO is named Daniel, and Daniel works in passive income, and they'll try and set up a meeting with you, after that phone call. They'll schedule a date. And so before, with the old pitch, I mentioned before on my show that pitch was illegal because many people that are part of Amway and LTD, their upline is not retired, or they have not doubled their income outside their jobs, but they're telling their prospects that, hey, I'm connected to so and so that built a web-based asset and they retired or doubled their income or etc. Or they're millionaires or whatever, or they're making six figures plus, and and their upline, their upline recruits that recruited them, they're not making anywhere near that much money, and they do not have the lifestyle that's being claimed, such as double their income or retired or whatever, because back in the day when I was in when he gave that pitch to a prospect, if the prospect made it through the whole interview process and they got launched and joined and recruit and registered with Amway FTD underneath that recruiter, they would soon find out that their coach that's going to be coaching them towards this whole business opportunity, their coach is not actually retired. Their coach is just like either a platinum or below or whatever rank, but their coach is still working a job. They're not retired, and they're not making more income from their business than their Amway business than their job that they're working currently. And they're not millionaires. They're not making six figures plus. They don't have any kind of lifestyle whatsoever that was claimed initially before. But before, prospects were misled into thinking that hey, if I work with this guy or this gal that's saying that they're working with this couple or this people or whoever it was that retired or did this or doubled their income or whatever, you name it, but their coach isn't actually doing that, that's illegal because you're making a false lifestyle claim. And I went up before that on my show, and it's on my website too, actually. It violates several laws, state consumer fraud laws, the FTC Act, you name it, because, because like when you join underneath these people, your coach that you're going to receive does not have that lifestyle that was initially pitched to you before. So that's illegal. It's a false lifestyle claim, false income claim, and that was never true. And we were all told to make up these lifestyles to make it seem impressive. Just say, hey, and I've actually I've actually shown this before on my show. If you go back, like I've shown how like we were coached that like hey, say millionaires, if you're comfortable with that, because if you say millionaires, it's gonna be more impressive. We have to shock them. That's what was always told to us. So you can say millionaires, you can say six figures. That's what I was coached from the whole Kevin Emilia Schweers team, the whole Schweers team, which Daniel and Thao Goebel are part of. We were all told, hey, make up a lifestyle that's impressive. So say, hey, your mentor, your coach, or whatever is making six figures plus, or is, making millions of dollars, or is retired, or double their income. We were all told to make up our own stories that we're comfortable with, but make sure it's impressive. So the prospect would want to be eager to meet with the mentor that does not have the lifestyle that was claimed initially in order to get that prospect to eventually join Amway Ltd underneath them. So it was all deception back then. And it's still the same thing now. Still the same thing now. Now with this new claim, this new pitch about, hey, I'm connected to a CEO that makes $70K annually. Now this pitch this new sequence, so to speak, matters. The reason why this new sequence matters is because when you study consumer protection law and deceptive marketing and direct selling compliance, the order of information is not a side issue. The order is a strategy. That strategy of 70K annually income claim, and of the passive income claim label, and of course the delayed Amway reveal later. We're going to go over this whole strategy. So first, let's reduce this to the most simplest form that we can. First, the prospect now today currently is told that there's a connection to a CEO making 70K annually a year. Second, the identity of the business is not made clear at the beginning. When you meet a rep from Amway and LTD, if you're a prospect, it's not revealed to you that the whole opportunity that they're revolving around when they're talking to you about this is Amway, and it's not revealed to you when they first meet you. When they first meet you. Third, on the phone call, the business that is never mentioned the name of, the business is framed as passive income. Fourth, only later does it become clear to you that the opportunity that was being talked to you about this whole time and being discussed is Amway. This is all the factual sequence that I'm analyzing to you right here. And the reason why this particular sequence matters is because each step shapes the prospect's expectations before the full truth is on the table. So now here, let's reveal the first illegal act that this violates from Daniel and Thao Goebel's fraudulent scheme of using this pitch and coaching their downline / recruits to use this pitch as well. Number one, it's a violation of a deceptive trade practice through the method of bait and switch. At a basic level, bait and switch is a deceptive sales method where an individual is attracted with one impression, one promise, or one framing, and then after interest is created, the real offer turns into a completely different opportunity than what was originally pitched. In other words, the real offer turns into a materially different opportunity. The real offer turns out to be materially different. The key issue here is that the initial framing is used to secure attention and emotional buy-in before the prospect understands what is actually being offered. That's why this is a deceptive trade practice through the method of bait and switch. Because if you look at the sequence, the bait is not just the number. The bait is the combined image. The fact that they say it's a CEO, and the fact that they're saying that the CEO makes $70K annually, and the fact that they say that the CEO works with passive income during the phone call. That whole package, CEO, $70K annually, passive income, this whole package creates a very specific mental picture. It suggests executive level credibility and a substantial income stream and a business model that sounds low friction and semi-automatic. Then the switch happens. What is ultimately being discussed is not an unnamed passive income venture. It is Amway. And according to Amway's own messaging standards, the term passive income is prohibited. The Amway Corporation, if you don't know this, actually prohibits their reps to not describe the Amway opportunity to prospects and downline that, Amway is an opportunity to create passive income, financial freedom, etc. It specifically states that within the Amway QAS quality assurance standards. So it's in their contracts for every Amway rep. I have that on my website. It's called www.yourplansoffelon.com. I'll post it below. But I have the Amway quality assurance standards, so this is a rule. It's always been a rule, and it still is a rule. So within that Amway quality assurance standards document that I have on my website, if you want to see, Amway does state this as a rule. You can't use passive income to describe Amway. It's prohibited. Specifically, it states here on the QAS standards that some words and phrases are always prohibited, including but not limited to quit your job, set for life, make more money than you have ever imagined or thought possible: unlimited income, full-time income, residual income, career level income, financial freedom, financial independence, and passive income, or any substantially similar statements or representations. APs and IBOs are also prohibited from representing that income is guaranteed or assured. So overall, Amway prohibits the reps to describe Amway as an opportunity to build passive income. So this falls all into a line of bait and switch through being a deceptive trade practice, because the bait is that, hey, it's an unnamed opportunity that is a passive income opportunity, and then later on it's revealed to you that it's an MLM, it's Amway, and that particular MLM is telling all the reps not to describe Amway as a way to build passive income, but yet they're describing it as a passive income opportunity initially before they tell you that it's Amway. So this is all bait and switch, where first the bait is that, hey, it's a passive income opportunity, without the name being revealed. That's the bait. And then the switch is that, hey, it's an MLM, a particular MLM that is stating to all the reps that they are prohibited to tell prospects and downline that Amway is a way to build passive income. So that's bait and switch. The bait is passive income that's being told to you and described to you without telling you that's Amway. And then the switch is that hey, it's an MLM, and that particular MLM, Amway, tells reps not to tell prospects and downline that Amway is a way to build passive income. So that's overall a deceptive trade practice, which is illegal, and it's a deceptive trade practice through the method of bait and switch. So this deception problem is not abstract, it is concrete. The prospect is induced by one description and later confronted with a different and more controversial reality. This is what makes this more than mere sales language. The initial representation performs a filtering function. It gets the prospect emotionally invested before the prospect knows enough to evaluate the opportunity accurately. In other words, the prospect's interest is not based on transparent disclosure. It is based on staged disclosure. That is why Daniel and Thao Goebel are guilty of committing a deceptive trade practice through the method of bait and switch. And a deceptive trade practice is illegal. And along with that, through doing this makes Daniel and Thao Goebel guilty of false advertising. Because if we isolate the phrase passive income, this is not a small wording issue. It is one of the most important parts of their pitch. Why? Because words are not neutral in sales. Words create expectations. Passive income does not sound like ordinary commission-based selling. It does not sound like a building a downline over time. It does not sound like customer acquisition, retention, product movement, ongoing effort, and attrition management. It sounds like income that continues with little ongoing labor. That's exactly why this phrase matters so much. It compresses complexity into an appealing fantasy. And Amway's own QAS content standards, quality assurance standards, specifically identifies passive income as prohibited terminology in the context of earnings and lifestyle claims. That means that this is not just my opinion about how the phrase sounds, the company's own compliance materials recognize that this language can create misleading impression. So this falls under false advertising because Daniel and Thao Goebel are overall describing this opportunity, Amway, as a passive income opportunity when Amway does not label itself as a passive income opportunity. And it deliberately goes out of its way to tell all of its reps not to describe Amway as a passive income opportunity to both prospects and downline. So they're giving a label towards a company that the company does not label itself as. In this case, it's passive income opportunity. So this makes Dan Goebel and Thao Goebel guilty of false advertising about Amway to both prospects and downline by describing it as a passive income opportunity when Amway does not describe itself as a passive income opportunity, and Amway goes out of its way to not tell or to tell all of its reps not to describe Amway as a passive income opportunity to both prospects and downline. So when a rep says Daniel works in passive income, that statement does at least three things at once. First, it softens resistance. Second, it conceals the actual structure of the business. Third, it uses a phrase that the company itself says should not be used and prohibits. That is why this is all false advertising or false or misleading advertising and a deceptive trade practice committed by Daniel and Thao Goebel and their entire team / recruits. The issue with advertising is not only whether a literal sentence can be defended after the fact, the issue is whether the representation creates materially inaccurate impression in the mind of the listener / prospect. And passive income plainly does that here with this whole scheme. And through doing this, Daniel and Thao Goebel are guilty of violating the FTC Act. Section 5. Section 5 of the FTC Act prohibits unfair or deceptive acts or practices. One of the core principles of deceptive practice law is that deception can happen not only through false statements, but also through material omissions, leaving out information that a reasonable person would consider important in making a decision, a business decision. So this is where the delayed Amway reveal matters. If the opportunity being pitched is Amway, then the identity of the business is not trivial detail. It is a central fact. Why is it a central fact? Because the name of the company affects how a person evaluates risk, reputation, legality, social consequences, expected effort, compensation expectations, and prior public information. A reasonable prospect may react very differently to an unnamed passive income CE opportunity than to Amway. That means the non-disclosure is not harmless. In fact, Amway's own official guidelines goes the other way. When presenting the opportunity, an Amway IBO must make it clear that what is being described or offered is the plan, the Amway compensation plan. And messaging guidelines says the speaker should be clear that the opportunity being discussed is the Amway business. Specifically within the Amway business reference guide, it states here on rule number 4 of the Amway business reference guide that Amway IBOs must not misrepresent their relationship with Amway, so IBOs can't misrepresent their relationship with Amway or conceal that the opportunity is Amway when presenting it to prospects. That includes not hiding Amway, that it's Amway, even temporarily. And that includes not using vague phrases like, I'm working with a CEO, or mentorship program, or business opportunity without disclosure. And it also involves not delaying disclosure until later meetings. That's rule number 4 of the Amway Business Reference Guide. And I have that reference guide on my website on www.youruplineasafelon.com if you want to look at it. So overall, rule number 4 of the Amway Reference Guide basically states that Amway reps can't hide that it's Amway, even temporarily. Because that rule number 4, states that deception is not allowed, omission is not allowed, and misleading recruiting practices are not allowed as well. So overall, this violation of the FTC Act, Section 5, committed by Daniel and Thao Goebel, is very simple. If a prospect is being warmed up, intrigued, and emotionally influenced before being told that the opportunity is Amway, then the important information is being withheld at the most decision-sensitive stage of the solicitation. Because overall, what is being omitted is the fact that the opportunity is Amway, and hiding any kind of fact like that, material fact, is considered deception under FTC law. And so this is a violation of the FTC Act, Section 5, because overall, Daniel and Thao Goebel are hiding the fact that it's Amway, even temporarily, until their third meeting within the self-created vetting process, the 7 to 9 meeting vetting process. They won't reveal, Daniel and Thao, that the opportunity is Amway to a prospect until the third meeting within the vetting process. But that's still illegal, even if you're hiding it temporarily, because overall you're omitting a material fact, and that material fact is that it's Amway to a prospect, and so the prospect is not getting a full understanding of what overall the opportunity is about. They're not being told that it's an MLM. They're not being told that it's Amway. That's all being left out, and it's all just being very vague and just saying, hey, it's generally a passive income venture, because Daniel works in passive income, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, they're leaving out that fact, which in law it's called the material fact, to overall help a prospect make an informed business decision. So overall, this is a violation of the FTC Act, Section 5, and this does not mean that Daniel and Thao Goebel are required to reveal their trade secrets on how they build their Amway distributorship. It just means that they are required to disclose the fact that the opportunity that is being pitched to a prospect is Amway. That's it. That's all they have to reveal. But through hiding this fact, just hiding the fact that the opportunity is Amway, it's illegal, and it's a violation of the FTC Act, Section 5. And it's also a violation of state consumer fraud laws. State consumer fraud statutes prohibit deceptive representations and material omissions in commerce. The legal wording varies by state, but the basic principle is consistent. You cannot sell, induce, or solicit through misleading half-truths. And so that's what matters here with Daniel and Thao Goebel's fraudulent scheme. It's not only about what is said, it is about what is being withheld, while prospects are being solicited and while their interest is being developed as they're being solicited. Because each prospect is evaluating the opportunity under an incomplete description. Because the name of the company, is not being clearly disclosed on the outset. They do not know the name of the company, and all they're being told is that it's a passive income venture. It's overall involved with passive income, and overall that term passive income is not allowed to be used when describing Amway to prospects and downline. So overall, prospects are not being told the company name, and they're being told vague descriptions that it's a passive income venture, so to speak. And some prospects are being misled under a description that is not allowed to be used by Amway, and they're not even told that it is Amway until later on. And so this will be a violation of state consumer fraud laws, because consumer protection law is not built only for obvious lies. It is built for situations where the overall net impression is misleading. And the net impression here is clear. Passive income success first, and then Amway later. And so this intention to mislead prospects is a violation of state consumer protection laws. Lastly, Daniel and Thao Goebel are guilty of making false income claims, and they're guilty of coaching their downline to make false income claims about them as well to prospects. Every prospect today is being told that Daniel and Thao Goebel makes $70K annually every year. However, that is not true, and I know that that is not true. The reason why is because Daniel and Thao Goebel are Amway Platinums, and years ago, were Founders Platinum in 2020. But after 2020, they didn't requalify, and they have not requalified since 2020. At best, they've been able to just be a platinum without going Founders Platinum. And Platinum is where you have 7,500 points going through your website, your Amway website, for 6 months. And Founders Platinum is where you have 7,500 points going through your Amway website for 12 months. So Daniel and Thao Goebel, they're only able to maintain, 7,500 points, through the website, their Amway website, for 6 months and not 12 months. They're only able to just go platinum, but not Founders Platinum. Daniel and Thao Goebel struggle to requalify Founders Platinum every year. They're only able to just qualify Platinum only. I want to make that clear. There's two ranks here. There's Founders Platinum and Platinum. So Platinum 6 months, Founders Platinum is 12 months, and Daniel and Thao Goebel are only Platinum, where they're only able to have that level for 6 months only. And I know this because I was in their downline, and they struggled to requalify Founders Platinum ever since 2020, and they never did requalify, and they still have not requalified since, and they're still at the same level when I left, which is just Platinum, and they're struggling to requalify Founders Platinum, and they're just right now currently at Platinum. And so I just want to make that clear here, because Daniel and Thao Goebel are not making $70K annually at Platinum from their Amway business. That is not true. They are not making $70K, and they have never made $70K ever through their Amway business. And I know that because I was in their downline. So I know that to be true. And I know that they can't prove that because they never disclose a profit and loss balance sheet detailing both their Amway business and their LTD distributor account. They never detail any of that stuff ever to any of their prospects or downline. They never showed me a profit and loss balance sheet, and they never showed any of my downline a profit and loss balance sheet, and they never showed any of their prospects or downline a profit and loss balance sheet. Because if they did show a profit and loss balance sheet, it would reveal that they are not making 70K annually from Amway. They are not. First off, they're platinums, so they get paid from both Amway and LTD. So there's two businesses. There's Amway and there's LTD. Prospects and downline, they're only told Amway alone as far as what he can earn with Amway, potentially. They're never told what he can earn with LTD, even though higher ups, platinums and above, Amway ranked platinums and above, receive income from LTD. So there's two businesses here where you receive income, but you're only told about Amway alone, and you're never told about LTD. But since Daniel and Thao are platinums, they get money from both LTD and Amway. So if they did show a profit balance sheet disclosing what they earn from both LTD and Amway and all of their expenses for LTD and Amway, it would reveal that they do not make 70K annually at the Amway Platinum level. It would reveal that. It would reveal that very clearly. And that's why they never show a profit and loss balance sheet to both any of their prospects or downline. That's why they never showed a profit and loss balance sheet to me as well when I was in. And if you go on my website, www.youroutlineasafelon.com, I have a link to the Amway income disclosure. And it will reveal to you that Founders Platinum annually makes less than 47K annually before expenses in the US. And Platinum annually earn less than 22K annually before expenses in the US. And on top of that, the average IBO, so they take up all the ranks, and they do the average of how much did the average IBO make in the US before expenses with all the ranks at taken all together as an average, and that number is $723 annually before expenses. So overall, the average Amway IBO in the U.S. before expenses makes less than $1,000 annually, according to the Amway U.S. income disclosure. And so, since Daniel claims that he makes 70K annually every year to prospects, and since he coaches his downline, his recruits, to tell prospects that he makes 70K annually a year, then that makes Daniel and Thao Goebel guilty of making false income claims. And that makes his downline, his recruits, guilty of making false income claims about Daniel and Thao. And overall, this all makes it non-compliant and misleading under Amway's own company standards. And if you look at the Amway income disclosure, and you look at some other Amway documentation, such as the Amway guiding principles document, Amway doesn't mention anything about 70K annually that you can earn or has been earned by, Amway reps that are in the U.S. Yeah, you're not gonna find that anywhere. At most, I have that on my documentation on my website, www.youroutlineasafelon.com. At most, Amway has claimed that Founders Platinum can earn $53,400. I'll say it again, $53,400 in the U.S. before expenses. And Amway doesn't make any income claims above the founder's platinum rank. That includes the ruby rank, the emerald rank, and the diamond rank, and so forth and so on. And so if you look at any kind of, Amway records, Amway documentation, Amway doesn't mention anything about making 70K annually. So that's way higher than what Amway as a company ever talks about. So a 70K annual income figure is not a minor embellishment. Around a commonly expected income level. It is a dramatically higher representation than what Amway publicly identifies as the average for that broad level brand. A claim like this, an income claim like this, would need careful context and careful substantiation. So, Daniel, if you're listening to this and you're saying this is all a lie, well, then prove it. Grow some balls and show a profit and loss balance sheet showing all of your earnings and expenses from Amway and LTD, both, and prove that you actually do earn 70K annually from Amway. I know you don't. I was in your downline. I was in your group. I know you don't make anywhere near that amount of money. And I know that you have never made anywhere near that amount of money from Amway alone. I know this to be true. And I know that you've never shown a profit and loss balance sheet to any of my prospects or downline. And I know to this day that you never show a profit and loss balance sheet to both your prospects and all of your downline. So if I'm wrong, prove it. If not, shut the fuck up. And in fact, you're actually required to prove it, actually, Daniel. Because according to rules, according to Amway, if an Amway IBO claims that they make a certain income, they are required to be able to prove it. And if that income is higher than what Amway officially reports as typical, they have extra disclosure requirements. And this all comes from Amway Rules of Conduct and the Amway Income Disclosure Requirements, and of course the FTC Earning Claims Laws. And so Amway IBOs cannot simply say I make 70K annually unless it is true and proof is provided. And according to Amway rules, if an IBO makes an income claim, they must be able to prove it with tax returns, 1099 forms, business records, and verified Amway income statements. If not, and if you can't prove it, then that is rule violation of Amway's rules. And if an IBO makes an income claim that is high or above average than what Amway as a corporation claims, then the IBO must provide the Amway income disclosure, and they must clearly explain that most people do not earn that amount of income at your level. And that's critical because even Amway's own data shows, according to their income disclosure, that most IBOs, most Amway reps make little to no profit from Amway. And so as an IBO, if Amway IBOs make income claims and do not provide proof and do not show the Amway income disclosure, then they are violating Amway's policies and they are violating the FTC Deceptive Earning Claims Law, and they are violating consumer protection laws as well. And so if you're a resident in Ankeny hearing this, if a rep, a part of Dan Goebel and Thao Goebel's team, talks to you and solicits you and says they're working with a CEO that makes 70K annually a year, and then later they tell you that CEO is Daniel, and he makes 70K a year annually, and he works with passive income, they're required to prove it. Daniel is required to prove it. And since that income claim is higher than what Amway claims, that 70K a year, that makes Daniel required to as well to not only prove it, but to also show the Amway income disclosure. And if he doesn't do both, then Daniel Goebel is not only breaking Amway's rules, but he's also violating several laws as well. So putting this all together, this is not just a misuse of words. It's a structured persuasion sequence. First, prospects are introduced to a prestigious sounding person, a CEO. Second, a high income number is injected, which is 70K annually. Third, the opportunity is softened with an attractive but prohibitive phrase, passive income. Fourth, the true identity of the business is delayed, and way later, not upfront. This particular sequence creates a misleading net impression before the prospect is in a position to evaluate the opportunity honestly. That is why Daniel and Thao Goebel are simultaneously guilty of committing a deceptive trade practice through the method of bait and switch and through violating the FTC Act, Section 5, through material omission by hiding that Amway, and through violating state consumer protection fraud laws, and through false advertising about Amway and misrepresenting Amway to prospects, and for making false income claims to prospects and for coaching their downline, all their downline, to make false income claims about them as well to prospects. Each violation, each law that Daniel and Thao Goebel are violating fits a different piece of their conduct that they're committing. But they all converge on the same core point. Prospects that are being prospected by the entire Goebel team, Goebel recruits, are not being approached through full, upfront, and transparent disclosure. Prospects are being misled through a sequence of deception. So that's the scheme. That's the Goebel fraudulent scheme. Prospects in Ankeny are being told by reps that are in or are part of Goebel's fraudulent scheme that they are connected to a CEO that makes 70K a year annually. And later they are told that Daniel is the CEO and he works in passive income. And only later does it become clear that the opportunity is Amway, despite Amway's own rules requiring truthful, non-misleading plan presentations and support for earnings claims and clarity that the opportunity is the Amway business, and a prohibition on passive income framing. That is why this all matters, because deception is often not a single lie, it is a sequence, a flattering title, a big number, a soft phrase, a delayed reveal. And by the time the real name arrives, the prospect's interest has already been engineered. That is a switch. That is the trade practice. That is the problem. And so, again, Daniel, if you're hearing this, or if any other rep that's in Daniel's team or a group or recruits are listening to this, if I'm wrong, prove it. Disclose a profit and loss balance sheet detailing both all of Daniel's and Tao's earnings and expenses from both Amway and Ltd. If not, it proves that I'm right and you guys are cowards and all of you guys are frauds that are intentionally lying to people in order to make a profit from people and to financially exploit them financially. And so if you live in Ankeny, Iowa, Daniel and Thao Goebel are scam artists, and if you ever prospected by them or any other member in their team or group or recruits, I would ask for a profit and loss balance sheet from Daniel and Thao detailing both of their Amway and Ltd distributor accounts. I would ask for all their expenses and all their earnings from both Amway and Ltd just to verify and to make sure that what they're claiming to you is true. In this case here, Daniel is and all of his recruits are telling prospects that him and Thao make $70K annually a year, but they never show a profit loss balance sheet, and they never have shown one ever, and they still never show one today. So I would ask to verify to see a profit loss balance sheet, and if they refuse and they don't show you one, I would walk the other way, because if they're claiming to you that they're CEOs and they're making $70K a year annually from Amway, they should be able to prove it. They shouldn't fear to disclose a profit loss balance sheet. If they fear and they're hesitant and they decide not to and they refuse, I'd walk away. And that proves that they're frauds, because they can't prove who they say that they are. And they can't prove that they make the amount of money that they claim to make. Because at the end of the day, Daniel and Thao Goebel are platinums that struggle to requalify a Founders Platinum, and they have not requalified Founders Platinum since 2020, 6 years ago. And so this couple are cowards, and all of the reps that are in their downline are also cowards as well, and they are still violating Amway's QAS content standards, and they are still violating the Amway Business Reference Guide. And so all this is a violation, again, for Daniel and Thao Goebel to not only be suspended from Amway, but also to be terminated from Amway as well. Because violating the Amway QAS standards that I mentioned here on this episode, violating the Amway QAS standards is grounds for termination from Amway, or at the very least, a suspension from Amway, like Larry and Pam did. But obviously Larry and Pam are signing off on this, and they're endorsing this, misleading practice to mislead prospects and downline intentionally, and to intentionally violate the Amway QAS quality assurance standards. It's grounds for, again, termination or suspension, not only for Daniel and Thao, but also for Larry and Pam, since they're signing off on all this and endorsing all this to their entire downline in Ltd. So obviously Larry and Pam have not learned their lesson. They're still violating Amway's quality assurance standards, and they're still misrepresenting the Amway opportunity. And they're still lying to prospects, still lying to their downline, and all their downline are lying to all of their prospects as well. and they're all following the same curriculum, the same deceptive curriculum, where this curriculum, the LTD curriculum, is all designed to deceive prospects and to entice them to ultimately join Amway and LTD. And so until Daniel decides to be a man for once in his life and, not take shortcuts, not take the easy way out, which is through lying and deceiving, and manipulating people to make a profit from them, and just actually be honest and transparent and build an honest, transparent business, then I won't expose him anymore and I won't talk about him anymore. But unless he does that, then I'm going to keep on talking about him, because he keeps taking the shortcuts. That's what all this is at the end of the day. It's just, cutting corners, taking shortcuts, and not being a man. Because at the end of the day here, not just Daniel and Thao, but all these people, all these Amway reps that are doing this, lying to people intentionally, making false income claims, false advertising, they're all doing this just to get people to join Amway and LTD. And even then, after that, when they join, they continue to lie and they continue to make false income claims, perpetually, and they continue to make up more lies about, where all the money goes for their admission fees to LTD events, etc., which is all legal. It's just cutting corners, taking the easy way out. I mean, it's easy to, make money illegally. It's easy. It's easy to lie to people, to deceive people, to trick people, to manipulate people to make money. That's the easy way. The hard way is to make money honestly and to make an honest living. That's the hard way. That's the manly way. That's the accountable way. But Daniel's not a man. He takes the shortcuts. He violates his own company rules by lying to people, false advertising, making false claims, and coaching his downline to do the same thing. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I speak out, to provide consumer awareness from Daniel Goebel and Thao Goebel and all the reps that are out here to scam people and mislead people and lie to people and not tell the truth to both prospects and downline, especially prospects, especially. And so again, warning to all prospects and residents that live in Ankeny, Iowa. The Daniel Goebel and Thao Goebel scam is running rampant, and so that's why I came on here, just to warn people about the new pitch and what they do and the lies that are being committed by this whole scheme committed by Daniel and Thao Goebel. And so that's all I had for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll keep you updated on my legal battle against my former upline. There hasn't really been new updates yet so far, but if when new updates come up, I'll let you guys know. But that's all I had for today, so I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye.